We are competing in, we are repeating in, we are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.
Welcome to Radio Intentional Decisions, and my name is Stella Nordahl, and welcome to this fantastic program series called Global Consciousness. Today we're going to explore the fantastic theme of intentional decisions in communications. And for being able to do this exploration on these intentional decisions on communication, I've invited from my point of view, a very interesting guest, and I'm so glad that you wanted to join here. Malte Strobeck, welcome. And,
Thank you.
Good to see you here in my library.
Yeah,
in Lomma.
An interesting situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah, definitely. And you and I, we have, so to speak, we have seen each other for quite some time. I would say maybe 10 years, approximately. I guess. Mm.
Yeah.
And that being said, that's half your life,
Yes,
more or less. So, how come? Couldn't you please tell me a little bit about Maltas, just so we know about why are you so interested in this topic and why?
Well, I find it rather interesting how much I didn't actually know about this. I recently actually began reading a book surrounding this. And I realized just how much of this is actually based on scientific research. It has a lot of backing even in that department. And furthermore, you showed me a fantastic concept a while ago, which... should I introduce it now?
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, so let's go for it.
I meant the man.
Okay. The capability cape. Yeah. You because you were part of an entrepreneur program for young people last year.
Correct.
And young entrepreneurs call during a summer camp, more or less. And you tried it on this capability cape.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what do you think about it?
Well, I was rather skeptical to start off. I have to say or admit, but as I put it on, I didn't really notice a change at first. However, after you continue to use it, you realize that as soon as you grow out, or at least I did, grow out of the initial skeptical period, you do notice a significant difference.
Yeah, definitely. So you realize that you're having one on the back of your chair, actually, one of those capability capes. And maybe we can come back to it in a while. But first, I met you in school, actually.
Yes.
you were attending a sort of interesting from communication point of view also school concept called the Montessori school concept, based on Maria Montessori's beliefs and thoughts and also actions. And I believe this is very interesting, connecting to intentional decisions in communication.
Definitely, yeah.
How do we look at people, for instance? How do we?
Well, through Montessori, I must say, I learned a lot to. It is based on learning by doing, and having that freedom to explore and having to actually choose on your own made me more capable to. I have to explore my own social interactions more.
Yeah, and the idea that people, no matter if they're 33 or 83, if they have the arguments, then you listen. And also that the people and young people in particular are competent to learn. I really like that, because learning is very close to communication, actually. And for instance, I would say, first part of your life, you more or less adopt or learn stuff all the time by communication. You try out stuff, you test things, you put yourself actually in new
situations.
Yeah, all the time.
Yes,
that's fantastic.
It is, and it's the fantastic part about my particular school was having the opportunity to explore, even though you were just a child, the concepts that you wanted, because you were treated, well, not entirely like an adult, but with the preset that you actually had the capabilities to do whatever you wanted if you just tried hard enough.
So that's a fantastic start in life, I would say. And then it took some time, and then we met in this entrepreneur program. And today we're sitting here in Best for the World broadcast, and we do this specific part of the podcast, Radio Intention Decisions, and the series Global Consciousness in Best for the World broadcast, which is 48 hours live broadcast where we are just one of the concepts. And now we're sitting here, and from a communication point of view, that's super interesting. I mean, we put our concept into a bigger concept.
Yeah, definitely.
That is communication at the core, more or less.
Indeed.
Yeah, and for instance, if we talk about communication, if I'm a person and I put myself in a context, say a family or organization, that is the base from which I communicate also.
Yes, yeah. I do get what you mean.
So why are you so interested in communication?
Well, we have to use it daily. It's an essential part of our life. If we do not know how to use it efficiently or in the way that we intend, we will miscommunicate, we will have problems understanding each other, and, well, understanding each other is an essential part of being able to cooperate, unleashing the capabilities that we have as humans to be a cooperative species.
Yeah, definitely. And when I'm thinking of communication, it's also actually how I communicate to myself. What do I say not only to other people, or what do I show not only to other people? And that is from everything to actually to what is possible at its very concrete moment, what is really possible. That is how I communicate to myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to what we said as an introductory part, we specified specifically that before you can change anything else, you'll have to begin by understanding yourself and starting with yourself. And I think communication is essential right there. If you don't communicate with yourself that you are a confident and capable person, you won't become one, and you won't be able to do the things that you want.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So when you say I am ... and you fill in the dots, you're actually creating yourself.
Definitely, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Really.
Yeah. And when I realized this, it was 15 years ago. Up until that point, I didn't realize that was the way it was. And the interesting thing is that as soon as I realized it, I couldn't unrealize it.
No.
When I got conscious about it, I couldn't like forget about it. I couldn't make myself unconscious about it.
No, as soon as you realize how much this affects your way of acting, it really begins to eroge in all of your different in all parts of your life.
Mm.
Or maybe enroach is the wrong word in that case. It's rather positive.
Mm.
You begin to get a new sense of how you can affect yourself and how much you are actually capable of furthermore.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking of what is possible. I've been really digging into it, and when you say that something is possible, you make it possible. And if you say something is impossible, you have actually created the possibility that it is possible. Because if you say this isn't possible, for instance, you have actually put in the concept that it could be possible.
Yeah. By introducing the
By
negation.
introducing the potential.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's super interesting because a lot of people say that when you say something is impossible, you lock yourself in. And I believe that could be true to some point. But at the same point, this is the interesting thing in it, that is that at the same time, you actually open up the potential that it is possible.
Specifically the part that you lock yourself in having an impossibility. Well, that is really exactly what we were talking about. If you do not understand that you have the capability to change your way of acting and thinking, if you think that this is impossible but don't go the other step to understanding that I just introduced the possibility, you are stuck there. So that's why it's so essential to actually understand that you have the power to affect this.
Yeah, and that makes you also a creator of not only yourself, your own experience. You're actually, by the perception, creating the world.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the story I was told when I was when I grew up. The story was totally different. That I was supposed to prepare myself to meet this future, or whatever we call it, reality. And I was able to adapt to the circumstances at best, and at worst I was a victim of them.
But you were at the mercy of the circumstances.
Yes. They were dictating the reality. And today I would say I by communicating, I actually create.
Yeah, definitely.
Not only as an idea, but really creating the circumstances.
Yes, because when you think it, you make it into reality. If you believe it, it will actually become so. That's part of the self-fulfilling prophecy we talked about.
Yeah.
The fact that if you think something, you will begin to enforce that way by yourself, naturally, subconsciously. Yeah.
And you told me that you were very interested in I don't know what you mentioned the concept of it was, but when you manifest, you really manifest. And when we talked about this capability cape, as you have been trying it out this summer, being a little bit skeptic, so couldn't you just elaborate a little bit on your thoughts there? Why did you think it was odd, so to speak? Can you go back to that point where you had those thoughts and see what was it in it that made you believe it wasn't for real?
Well, understanding, or rather hearing that you have the capability to change your way of acting, how self-assured you are, how much you can do by just putting on a cape is a bit too good to be true. At least I thought so. And furthermore, I hadn't really understood the concept behind it, because I hadn't realized the fact that if you think something, you can make yourself continue to think that and change the way you act.
And
oh, sorry.
Yeah, and that when you do that, I mean, you have the thinking, more or less, is the mental pole of something. Then you have the physical pole, that is something that is, a book in this bookshelf, or the capability cape itself.
Yeah.
That became not only a concept of a dream or an idea, it actually manifests at the same time when you put it on.
Indeed, definitely. And I must say, I almost have a capability cape on me right now.
Yeah. That's interesting, because it's both mental and physical at the same time. So they are not separated.
No.
They are coexisting as more or less different, so to speak. what do you call it, when it's more of a way of looking at it. If I stand from here, I see
concept.
I see the mental part of it, or a mental side of it. From another angle, I see the physical. And the thing is, as I've tried this out a lot in many different ways, I've come to realize that if you say something, that's the mental pole say, and you don't do it, you create a dissonance.
Definitely.
A gap between what we say and what we do, which I believe is one of the main reasons to why people don't live the life that they want to do, more or less. They find themselves maybe in a corporation where they or a work where they don't find energy, or they find themselves in a constellation of people where they don't get the best out of themselves. And I would say this is not the only one, but maybe one of the most important ideas or things, because behind the reason of dissonance and unhealthy relations, for instance, or unhealthy constellations, or unhealthy situations.
Well, if your ideas and your perception doesn't add up with reality, then definitely you don't you can't really become what you think, and you can't really keep both worlds. Well, since they don't match up. So exactly, that's why you would need something like this, or why it would help at least. It's a way of almost enforcing your idea, the mental part, into the physical.
Yeah, definitely, and connecting them
Indeed.
in a very concrete way. From my point of view today, I've been thinking of this the last 15 years, very intense, and from my point of view today, I would say it's equally. I mean, I know that we have been using this capability cape as a way of manifesting things for those who are not used to manifest what they need, or what they want, or what the possibilities or potential have. And from my point of view today, I've come to a point where I can use some mental capability cape whenever I like, and that is a very fast way of creating.
Yeah.
But that doesn't put the physical capability cape in an opposition. It's just again another aspect of it. It's another aspect of life, or aspect of reality, or whatever it is. So it's not a different reality. It's just as another aspect of it.
Indeed. And I think that's a really important part. It allows you to explore this concept that you might have never explored before, or understood. And if you don't, it's rather difficult to just do it with the mental part, just by envisioning.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic tool for actually understanding how you can control your own thinking and reality.
And what I'm thinking of is that when we come to the idea that we should do this specific program about intentional decisions in communication, you told me that you have studied this in a book, and there was some kind of a reference of how powerful it was. And I really like those statements. Do you remember it?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm reading a book about a perception in general, how we perceive each other. And once again, it's vital to bring up the part that you actually have to communicate with yourself what you want to communicate with others as well, if you are to at least succeed. Otherwise, there's a dissonance. So what I read as part of that was the fact that if you would strike a superhero pose for 2 minutes, simply 2 minutes, you would get a rise in hormones such as testosterone, and a decrease in hormones such as cortisol, which makes you, first of all, more confident and less prone to stress. So you become more like a superhero almost. Well, you are ready to face whatever challenge comes without being as
Couldn't you show us?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Yeah, we couldn't measure the specific testosterone and cortisol, but you have to put down your
Yeah.
headphones
Yes,
and yes, show us what you're up to here.
I will.
So by doing this, you actually okay. Here we go. Maybe you should use this capability cape also.
Oh yes.
Mm.
Can introduce both of them. Let's see here.
So now Moltos is putting on his capability cape, and yeah, this is what happens to people. You actually get straight in the back, and you raise your vision above the horizon. Thank you. You can put it. Keep it on.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. Fantastic concept that having you here in my house, putting this capability cape on. I really love that. So. How do you feel today? When half a year later, when you did this first time, it was during I think it was a specific event we were part of. When I said to you, wouldn't you like to use the capability cape? We were at a what do you call it, exhibition or some
Expo.
kind expo in some sense, or you were there with your company, and you were up to something there.
Well, it required a lot of courage. At least.
Yeah. Because I also believe that when you do it, you have actually passed the point of no return, more or less. Isn't that true?
Yeah. Well, you put it on and you become this. Well, you look strange to others, maybe. So then you have to act it out, or rather, you have to be what you have.
But doesn't come natural, because from when I see people, actually I've been doing this for a couple of years now, putting capabilities cape on people. I've seen a lot of transformation, a lot of instant transformation in people, having a whole new set of ways to entering the world. I mean, you showed us the what did you do with your arms, the superhero pose and so on. But also that is very common to when people put this on. But also it's more like they can be themselves. That's odd. I mean, even if you don't wear a capability cape all the time, when you put it on physically, for instance, you become more of yourself. So the concept here, or the idea, is that there are plenty of the capability capes. Probably they are like infinite numbers of them in the closet, but you have to put them on to use them. But there is always a capability cape for every person under any circumstance, in any situation. So yeah, that's pure communication again, I guess. And from a communication point of view, what would you say have struck you when reading this book?
Well, mostly the fact that this is all based on scientific works. The more I read about it, the more it just gets proven, and other points that I haven't really understood before, but rather reflected on or had a small perception of. They also expand. Once you begin to understand the concept, you can go further and further into having that ability to put on your own mental mantle or your capability cape, and transform yourself even without physical manifestation.
Yeah. And that's the point where I come to, that I wouldn't say I don't need a physical cape, but more or less that's one aspect of it. I can use that, but I can also use the mental capability cape. And the thing with the mental one is that it's you have it with you all the time.
Yeah.
So for people who are listening in here, probably maybe you don't really get the concept here, but what we're talking about, just to resetting the room for a while, is that we're talking about intentional decisions in communication, and what happens when we communicate to the world, and we put something out to the world, and when we're doing so, we will also communicate that to ourselves.
Yeah.
So we create the reality. So what can we do with this knowledge then? If this is something that you realized quite recently, how does that affect your day-to-day life?
Well, I mean, it expands your opportunities. Before every test, I still go to school. Before every test, I think that, okay, I'm going to write this test, and I will write it perfectly. I will score perfectly, and I will at least I will do my best. But it will go well. And that really affects my way of thinking. If you're skeptical of this working or not, well, at least by my experience, lessens the effect of it. So understanding it and trusting that concept has helped me a lot, especially in developing this mental version, and specifically handling situations where I need a lot more courage than I otherwise could muster.
And I also see that there is a huge opportunity here for humanity as a whole, but also as every community in itself, and to use this knowledge, because I believe that it has been around for a couple of thousand years. At the same time, I also see in the day-to-day life when I meet people that this is a knowledge that has been either forgotten or not taught or taught. So that was the case in my own case. That was something I didn't even heard of or had a slight idea of until the moment that I realized it. And
a bit of eureka moment.
Yeah, definitely. That was the biggest insight that I've had in my life. So, which is quite interesting in itself. So how come that it's not part of our belief system or because it's very relevant. I mean, it's actually affecting every moment in your life, and it's very simple actually.
Yeah,
it's a quite a simple principle to use in your life. So maybe that is what we have to do here at some point.
Try to spread it.
Yeah.
Try to make people understand. Yeah. I do agree. And it's really strange since it's rather easy to understand if you get it explained to you, and if you get the experience with it, if you actually try it out. When you do so, you will, well, at least I did, begin to notice it. And there is also scientific basis, so I don't understand.
It's not in opposition to the... No, that's right. It's not in opposition to science at all.
Exactly.
I would say it's perfectly in line. Maybe it's in opposition to some concepts of science, like the observer who is like not part of the system. You know, when you set up a scientific setup, you put in an observer which is not affecting the system. That is the story. But with this knowledge, you realize that you can't be outside the system. When looking at it, you're actually
inside it at all times.
Yeah, at the same time. Yeah,
true.
Yeah. With that it's also quite easy to understand when you think of it. But if you don't think of it, you're not aware that is what happened.
This a block almost. You have to.
You're blind to it.
Yeah, a blindfold, definitely, into this fantastic world. No, so you have to get past that in order to actually be able to understand the concept. Which is why, once, like you said, it's strange how it isn't taught, since, you don't really discover it until late, or...
No, I must have been like in my 30s.
So it takes quite a while.
Yeah, and today I can almost be a little bit stunned by how come that I didn't realize it up until that point. I don't know actually. I haven't found an explanation to it. I mean, I can look at the history of ideas and so on, and realize that there are moments in the Western world where we have actually separated the inner and outer world, so or the separated the individual from the collective and so on. I know that, but at the same time, that is just an explanation of why we have built this thought system. It's not an explanation why we keep it. No,
indeed. Although that's the difficulty of well, living in the current, and you can't really affect it that much, at least not affect everyone around you.
But maybe you can. This is also an interesting thing, because when you do this, what you just did, put that capability cape on, you manifested a huge shift. That actually, from my point of view, when that happened in my life, when I got this insight I'm talking about, the 15 years ago insight, it tilted the world. I couldn't look at the world with the same eyes any longer.
You suddenly had the power to change it and make
Yes,
turn the future into what you wanted.
Yeah, or what maybe the future that we want as a species, or we as the living organism on planet Earth, or we as a collective universe, or whatever. Instead of struggling against something.
Exactly. Yeah, because otherwise you mostly rise to meet the coming challenges instead of trying to turn the situation into what would be best.
Thank you very much, Maltas. Anything else you want to add to this conversation?
No, I think we stated quite clearly.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you very much for being guest in Radio Intentional Decisions and in this Global Consciousness program series. And hope to see you again. And I know that, because we will continue those broadcasts during this weekend. And for those who are maybe listening just to this podcast, go into bestfather.world and you will see plenty of concepts, maybe 70 concepts and 150 people co-creating them. Let's create what is best for the world. Thank you very much.
Decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.